Making good on his vow of political vengeance, Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has successfully booted Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar off the Foreign Affairs Committee. So, as you may have heard me mention just a time or two, the modern-day Republican Party has absolutely zero interest in responsibly governing. They also have no talent for it. What they do have an interest in, and what they do have a talent for, are performing political stunts, enacting political vengeance, and engaging in BS culture war takes that have absolutely no relevance to the lives of you and I and other Americans. And that tendency has manifested itself yet again today because the Republican majority under Kevin McCarthy has successfully removed Ilhan Omar, a Democratic congresswoman who is very outspoken, very controversial, off the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is a very high-profile, very prestigious assignment, which she's enjoyed, I'm pretty sure, since she entered Congress a few years ago. And before we dive into it, let's just set up the predicate. Let's set the table as to why this happened. So this has its origins, for practical purposes, back in 2021. And as we discussed in a previous video, back in 2021, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats ran the House of Representatives. She was Speaker of the House. The Democrats were in the majority. And what had happened was a couple of Republican congresspeople, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, had basically incited violence and had a history of inciting violence against their Democratic peers. And actually, in the case of Gosar, not just the Speaker of the House, but the President of the United States, the sitting president, which in times past we used to consider that the biggest of no-nos, right? So in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had a history of either saying on the record to people or making comments on Facebook or liking comments on Facebook that were talking about executing Democrats that she didn't like, shooting Democrats that she didn't like, and that sort of thing. And in the case of Paul Gosar, he paid for an animated campaign video in the style of Attack on Titan, in which an animated version of him was like dual-wielding samurai swords, and he bisects Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, a Democrat, and then takes those bloody swords and swings them at an animated version of President Biden. So after these things happened, the Democrats under Nancy Pelosi were like, okay, guys, Republicans, you need to handle this. You need to harshly rebuke this. You need to basically grind this out of existence. You need to crush them and make an example of them for inciting violence and breaking norms. And Republicans refused to do that. A couple of them spoke out against him, like, guys, golly gee, you shouldn't have done that. But it was really tepid. It was really lukewarm, and they wouldn't take action. Kevin McCarthy was the minority leader at the time, and he and Steve Scalise, the two Republican leaders, they didn't really want to do anything about it other than just say, well, gosh, golly gee, maybe they shouldn't have done that. So after giving them the chance to handle it themselves, and they refused to, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats said, okay, well, we're going to kick them off their assignments. We're going to make an example of them. And they were right to do so. And they did. But when they did, and this was 2021, Kevin McCarthy did the thing that all Republicans do. It's like, well, if you do the right thing here, then we're going to make payback. We're going to get vengeance on you later on down the road and cite the thing that you did, the good thing that you did, as the reason why we're doing it when we take the majority. And so that's what he said at the time, and now they're in the majority, and this is what's happening. Kevin McCarthy has tried to remove Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff from their assignments because they were two prominent Republican targets, and now it's Ilhan Omar. So that's the political side of things. In terms of what Ilhan Omar did or didn't do, let's set the table there. So Ilhan Omar has been an outspoken critic of the Israeli government and certain Israeli lobbying groups. And back in 2019, so 3 years ago, damn near to the day, it's February 11, 2019, when this WAPO article was written, it says that she's been a member of Congress for a little over a month, but for the second time she's apologized for circulating what she herself called an anti-Semitic trope. What does that mean? Well, she tweeted Sunday night that it's all about the Benjamins, baby, when discussing Republican leaders punishing her for her comments about Israel. She later suggested that AIPAC, a pro-Israel lobbying group, was responsible for it. So this was decried as an anti-Semitic trope. Now, she was saying, look, I'm criticizing Israel and certain corrupt, very powerful pro-Israel lobbying groups. I'm not criticizing the Jewish race. I'm not criticizing the Jewish religion. I am criticizing certain Jews who happen to be corrupt, the Israeli government under Benjamin Netanyahu, and certain lobbying groups. That was her logic. But many people, including many, many Democrats, about 24 Democrats, including all the party's leaders, were like, look, this is leaning too much into anti-Semitic tropes surrounding Jews and money. This is unacceptable. So what did Ilhan Omar do? She publicly apologized. She said, look, anti-Semitism is real, and I'm grateful for Jewish allies and colleagues who are educating me on the painful history of anti-Semitic tropes. My intention is never to offend my constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticism, just as I expect people to hear me when others attack me for my identity. This is why I unequivocally apologize. At the same time, I reaffirm the problematic role of lobbyists in our politics, whether it be AIPAC, the NRA, or the fossil fuel industry. It's gone on too long, and we must be willing to address it. And then they dug up a 2012 tweet, so 11 years ago, in which she said that Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah, because she's Muslim, awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. So this tweet was issued in 2012. It was dug up. People were like, damn, this is anti-Semitic. And again, she was saying, look, I was probably clumsy with my words, but when I was criticizing Israel, I was criticizing a government of Israel that I view to be corrupt, which isn't anti-Semitic. But depending on how you use your words, it could absolutely lean into and breathe life into anti-Semitic tropes. So again, she apologized, right? Now, again, these are certainly troublesome remarks, depending on how you interpret it. And she was called out by her own party, not just publicly criticized, but they drafted a resolution formally condemning her remarks, even though she apologized, right? That's accountability. And that was also, in this case, not only was the initial tweet more than 10 years ago, the comments here about the Benjamins were 4 years ago. And she apologized, and she was reprimanded. So anyway, that's the predicate here. But the House of Representatives went ahead and voted anyway to kick her off the Foreign Affairs Committee. The vote marks the latest reprisal in an escalating partisan tit-for-tat over committee assignments that House members in both parties have called to end. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy vowed in 2011 to retaliate against Democrats over the removal of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, and he also blocked Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, as we discussed. Now, Ilhan Omar said on the floor today, she said, this debate today, it's about who gets to be an American. What opinions do we get to have? And do we have to be counted as Americans? That's what this debate is about. I'm a Muslim. I'm an immigrant. Is anyone surprised that I'm being targeted? Is anyone surprised that I'm somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy? Frankly, it's expected. And she's right to point out, like, hey, look, if you want to accuse me of playing into anti-Semitic tropes in the past, for which I've apologized, you're also indulging in anti-Arab, anti-Muslim tropes as well by kicking me off, right? And so what's interesting about this, and we'll get into certain comments that were made by her Democratic peers in her defense, which I think are particularly salient, but the resolution passed 218 to 211, largely along party lines. It cites 6 comments Omar made about Israel, pro-Israel groups, and 9/11 between 2019 and 2011 that were slammed as anti-Semitic. Representative Dave Joyce, a Republican, a member of the House Committee on Ethics, voted present, and talks about what AOC and Representative Rashida Tlaib said, and we're going to look at exactly what they said. But what's interesting is initially, this vote was expected to fail. The initial whip count suggested that McCarthy wouldn't have the votes he needed to pass this resolution. It was going to be yet another embarrassing failure for him. But he was able to get votes. And from at least one name that is particularly relevant to me or particularly interesting to me, and we'll get into that. So McCarthy secured the votes he needed by agreeing to spend the next 30 days working on creating a process that would require the Ethics Committee to sign off on efforts by one party to remove another party's members from committees. So think about that. He's like saying, look, help me kick her off now, just on party lines. Just give me the votes I need to make an example of her. And then we'll spend the next 30 days to, let the Ethics Committee have to sign off on doing this in the future. So let's not create a standard and then try to apply it. Let's sneak this last one in and then create a standard which, now that we've got our pound of flesh, will make it hard for anybody to do it in the future. Pretty bad faith, right? And it does say that it would require at least one Democrat on the evenly divided panel to support removal, raising the bar for such a resolution to make it to the House floor. Okay? This is the name, though, that stands out because I just did a video on her. Nancy Mace, Representative Nancy Mace, the moderate, rational, reasonable, I'm not a Trumper, I'm not a MAGA lady. She voted yes after publicly vowing to vote no. She voted yes. She swore up and down, I don't care who pressures me, I am not going to vote to kick Ilhan Omar off her committee assignment. except when she did. She just did. So, and her basis for doing so, well, I secured a commitment from McCarthy to reform the process to make future removals more difficult. I'm going to help you this once, McCarthy. I'm going to let you cheat this one time, as long as we make it harder to cheat the next time. Pretty bad faith. Pretty disgusting. And also further evidence that she's nowhere near the rational, moderate, good faith operative that she pretends she is, and that too many people say she is. But let's get into exactly what AOC said in her defense, because I thought this was really interesting.
Thank you. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America. And this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes, and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
She was right. She's absolutely right. Paul Gosar made like an animated love letter to cutting her in half, and Republicans didn't care. This isn't about consistency. By the way, that same guy also threatened the sitting president. Remember when Kathy Griffin, who was not a sitting member of Congress, held up a decapitated head of President Trump in effigy back in 2017 as a joke? She wasn't a sitting member of Congress, right? But everybody condemned that, including Democrats, including Stephen Colbert called her out for it as going way too far, right? That's the standard that the left and Democrats are held to. Republicans don't hold themselves to that standard, and they expect Democrats not to hold them to that standard too. So I thought that was interesting from AOC. Now we have Rashida Tlaib, and here's what she has to say.
Censor Congresswoman Omar in the same week. They introduced a bill to ban federal employees from engaging in censorship. Where are the free speech warriors today? The hypocrisy is obvious to the American people. You are showing who you all are, really.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Omar will not be silenced.
So yeah, I thought that was an interesting point too. The Republican Party that's pro-free speech, hey listen, say what you want, you snowflakes shouldn't be able to melt, be able to take the heat. Here they are punishing a Democratic Congresswoman for exercising her free speech, however clumsy. You know, however, whatever you want to say about it, she apologized for it. And if you're really a free speech absolutist, if you really prioritize free speech, why is it okay for Republicans to say whatever offensive things they want and you won't punish them, and you actively oppose punishment of them by others when you won't do it, but you'll punish Democrats for speech you don't like from Democrats? The fact of the matter is that whatever hypocrisies exist for the Democratic Party, and I'm sure they do, they are woefully outmatched by the hypocrisies that come from the Republican Party. The Republican Party is unprincipled. The Republican Party is inconsistent. The Republican Party cares only about the brutal exercise of power. And my hope is that since there's no limiting principle for the GOP here, if and when Democrats are able to reclaim the House, I hope they learn from this, and I hope they continue. I hope that they take a page from the GOP's textbook, because again, the GOP doesn't care. They're not going to have a change of heart like, okay, guys, you know, we'll play by the same rules. They don't care. And if rules are not going to be equally applied, then nobody should adhere to them. And I think that it would be good for Democrats to start being brutal, ruthless in exercising their power. So people like Jim Jordan, the next time that Democrats hold the House majority, he should be kicked off his assignments. Come up with a reason. He's done plenty of stupid things and said plenty of stupid things to justify this. To start being indiscriminate, make it a point. Like, okay, guys, we had very damn good reasons to take Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene off the board because you refused to after they incited violence. That's not the standard that you're holding here. None of the Democrats here are inciting violence, and if they are, that's not the reason that you're kicking them off the assignments. So if that's the case, if you're going to take a justified action from us and then blow it out of proportion and use it as an excuse to just do whatever the hell you want, then I guess we should be able to do the same thing. So if we just don't like you, we're going to take you off committee assignments when we take the majority. That's what I'd like to see Democrats do, to make the point. You can either lose a fair fight or you can lose an unfair fight, but we're not operating by an asymmetry. That's what I'm hoping comes from this, but we'll see. Hey you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.